Hey, welcome. We're about to go on a pretty wild philosophical ride. It's basically a story of dominoes, how one single, really unsettling idea about human relationships kicked off a chain reaction. And this chain reaction, it ended up questioning everything we thought we knew about meaning, about history, and yeah, even about truth itself.
All right, so our whole story really kicks off with this guy, the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. And his view of the world? Well, it's intense. He basically said that to be human is to be in a constant, never-ending battle with everyone else. Seriously, he thought we're all just fundamentally alienated, and that yourself, who you are, isn't some fixed thing. Nope, it's something you have to invent, from scratch, every single moment. As you can imagine, this very bleak picture didn't go over too well with a lot of people. It was the spark that lit the fuse.
So, right away, the first reaction came from philosophers who looked at Sartre's idea and said, hang on a second, that's not the whole story. They argued that, we aren't just these lonely atoms bouncing off each other in conflict. We're actually deeply connected, grounded in our relationships and in our own bodies. Take Gabriel Marcel, for instance, a French Catholic philosopher. He thought Sartre's view was, frankly, way over the top. He was like, life isn't always a knockdown, drag-out fight. For Sartre, every time he talked to someone, it's a battle of wills. But Marcel pointed out something that feels a lot more true to life, right? Sometimes relationships just fizzle out. People drift apart. It's not this big, dramatic negation, it's just disengagement. So for Marcel, our connections to each other exist on this whole big spectrum, with alienation on one end and love on the other. It's just a much more optimistic and honestly relatable way of looking at things. Then you have Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who came at it from a slightly different angle. He took issue with Sartre's whole idea of the self. He basically said, look, if who I am is just this string of actions I'm constantly creating, then where's the I? Where's the person who's actually having all these experiences? In a way, he argued, Sartre's philosophy completely eliminates the subject, the actual person at the center of it all.
So what was Merleau-Ponty's answer? He called it the lived body, and it's exactly what it sounds like. He argued that it's our concrete, physical experience of being in the world, what we see, what we touch, how we perceive things, that gives us a sense of continuous identity. That's what was missing from Sartre's picture. Our bodily existence is our anchor. It's a huge shift away from Sartre's radical, kind of dizzying, moment-to-moment freedom.
Okay, and this is where the dominoes really start to fall. This new focus on our personal, subjective experience raised a massive new question. If our understanding is so tied to us, our bodies, our time, our place, then how in the world can we ever hope to understand something from a totally different context, like, say, an ancient text? The whole conversation in philosophy started to shift from what are we to how do we even know anything?
And you can see this whole evolution laid out here. It's fascinating. First, back in the Enlightenment, the thinking was, hey, we can be totally objective. The reader is just a neutral observer, like a scientist. But then the pendulum started to swing. People like Schleiermacher said, no, what matters is getting inside the author's head. Then it swung again, with guys like Husserl and Heidegger saying, forget the author, it's all about the reader's experience. And finally, a philosopher named Hans-Georg Gadamer looked at all this back and forth and said, you know what, you're all kind of right. It's not one or the other, it's a dialogue between the two.
So here's the puzzle, right? You've got these two different perspectives. The person who wrote the thing way back when, and you, the person reading it now, with this huge gap of history and culture between you. How do you build a bridge across that gap? That was the exact problem Gadamer set out to solve.
And Gadamer's idea was pretty revolutionary. He said that reading something isn't like being a surgeon dissecting a body. It's more like having a conversation. You come to the text with all your own stuff, your biases, your questions, your pre-understanding. But then, and this is key, you have to actually listen. You let the text talk back, challenge you, and reshape your questions. It's this continuous back and forth. And over time, as you keep up this dialogue, something really cool happens. Your perspective, what Gadamer called your horizon, and the text's horizon start to merge. Your world and its world begin to overlap. It's a really hopeful, optimistic idea, right? That we can actually build a bridge to the past and find some kind of shared understanding.
But just when it seemed like we had this really elegant solution, this beautiful bridge to the past, a new idea came along. And this idea didn't just question the bridge, it basically said the ground we're building it on is quicksand. What if the very tool we're using for this dialogue, Language itself is completely unstable.
This monumental challenge came from another French philosopher, Jacques Derrida, and honestly, his work would change everything. This is really the point where philosophy started to turn on itself and question the very tools of its trade: words. Derrida's famous method was called deconstruction, and the core idea is this: language isn't some clear window we look through to see reality. He argued it's more like an artificial grid that we lay over the world. Deconstruction is the process of picking that grid apart, showing how it's full of contradictions, and proving that it can never hold one single stable meaning. Any interpretation you come up with is just you weaving another layer onto that grid.
So what's the bottom line here? For Derrida, a text basically becomes impossible to pin down. There's no such thing as the correct interpretation. The author completely loses control of what their words mean. And all of a sudden, you have a whole universe of different, even conflicting interpretations that aren't just possible, they're all considered legitimate.
Okay, so for this last part, let's see how this whole European philosophical journey jumped across the Atlantic, landed in America, and created a dilemma that we're all still living with today.
This is where the American philosopher Richard Rorty enters the picture. He took all these European ideas and ran with them. He argued that for centuries, philosophy had this one grand ambition: to be a perfect mirror of nature. To give us a flawless, 100% accurate picture of reality. Rorty said that entire project, it's a complete dead end. It's impossible.
And so Rorty laid out what he saw as our only two options. It's a stark choice. On one hand, you've got the classic dream: absolute, certain truth. But if that's impossible, and guys like Derrida pretty much convinced him it was, then what's left? He said the only other option is to become a complete skeptic. It's all or nothing. So now you can see the whole chain reaction, right? It all starts with Sartre's intense vision of alienation. That sparks a comeback that's all about relationships in the body. But that leads to the problem of how we can understand the past, which Gadamer tries to solve with his idea of a dialogue. And then, boom, Derrida comes along and says the very language we'd use for that dialogue is unstable, which completely blows up Gadamer's bridge. And that's what leads us right to Rorty's final, skeptical conclusion. And this entire journey leaves us staring at a huge and kind of scary question for our own time. If every text, every idea, can have an infinite number of legitimate meanings, how do we ever build a shared truth? How do we agree on anything? And look, why this really matters is that this isn't just some dusty philosophical debate anymore. This is the world we live in now, one that's just swimming in competing narratives, where we all struggle with the very real uncertainty about what's true. This chain reaction we just followed, it helps explain how we got here.